How are you doing that? Demanded Hermione, who was red-faced and whose hair was growing bushier and bushier in the fumes from her cauldron. Her potion was still resolutely purple. Add a clockwise stir. No, no, the book says counterclockwise. She snapped. Harry shrugged and continued what he was doing. 7 stirs. Counterclockwise, 1 clockwise, pause. 7 stirs counterclockwise. 1 stir clockwise. Across the table, Ron was cursing fluently under his breath. His potion looked like liquid licorice. Harry glanced around. As far as he could see, no one else's potion had turned as pale as his. He felt elated, something that had certainly never happened before in this dungeon. And time's up, called Sloane. Stop stirring, please. Sloane moved slowly among the tables, peering into cauldrons. He made no comment, but occasionally gave the potions a stir or a sniff. At last, he reached the table where Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Ernie were sitting. He smiled ruefully at the tar-like substance in Ron's cauldron. He passed over Ernie's navy concoction. Hermione's potion he gave an approving nod. Then he saw Harry's, and a look of incredulous delight spread over his face. The clear winner! He cried to the dungeon. Excellent, excellent, Harry. Good Lord, it's clear you've inherited your mother's talent. She was a dab hand at potions, Lily was. Here you are, then, here you are, 1 bottle of Felix Felicis, as promised, and use it well. Harry slipped the tiny bottle of golden liquid into his inner pocket, feeling an odd combination of delight at the furious looks on the Slytherins' faces, and guilt at the disappointed expression on Hermione's. Ron looked simply dumbfounded. How did you do that? He whispered to Harry as they left the dungeon. Got lucky, I suppose, said Harry, because Malfoy was within earshot. Once they were securely ensconced at the Gryffindor table for dinner. However, he felt safe enough to tell them. Hermione's face became stonier with every word he uttered. I suppose you think I cheated, he finished, aggravated by her expression. Well, it wasn't exactly your own work, was it? She said stiffly. He only followed different instructions to ours, said Ron. Could have been a catastrophe, couldn't it? But he took a risk and it paid off. He heaved a sigh. Sloane could have handed me that book, but no, I get the one no one's ever written on. Puked on, by the look of page 52, but... Hang on, said a voice close by Harry's left ear, and he caught a sudden waft of that flowery smell he had picked up in Sloane's dungeon. He looked around and saw that Ginny had joined them. Did I hear right? You've been taking orders from something someone wrote in a book, Harry. She looked alarmed and angry. Harry knew what was on her mind at once. It's nothing, he said reassuringly, lowering his voice. It's not like, you know, Riddle's diary. It's just an old textbook someone's scribbled on. But you're doing what it says. I just tried a few of the tips written in the margins, honestly, Ginny. There's nothing funny. Ginny's got a point, said Hermione, perking up at once. We ought to check that there's nothing odd about it. I mean, all these funny instructions. Who knows? Hey. said Harry indignantly, as she pulled his copy of Advanced Potion Making out of his bag and raised her wand. Specialis Revelio, she said, wrapping it smartly on the front cover. Nothing whatsoever happened. The book simply lay there, looking old and dirty and dog-eared. Finished, said Harry irritably. Or do you want to wait and see if it does a few backflips? It seems all right, said Hermione, still staring at the book suspiciously. I mean, it really does seem to be just a textbook. Good. Then I'll have it back, said Harry, snatching it off the table, but it slipped from his hand and landed open on the floor. Nobody else was looking. Harry bent low to retrieve the book, and as he did so, he saw something scribbled along the bottom of the back cover in the same small, cramped handwriting as the instructions that had won him his bottle of Felix Felicis, now safely hidden inside a pair of socks in his trunk upstairs. This book is the property of the Half-Blood Prince. Chapter 10, The Hour of Gaunt. For the rest of the week's potions lessons, Harry continued to follow the Half-Blood Prince's instructions wherever they deviated from Libatius Burridge's, with the result that by their fourth lesson Sloane was raving about Harry's abilities, saying that he had rarely taught anyone so talented. Neither Ron nor Hermione was delighted by this. Although Harry had offered to share his book with both of them, Ron had more difficulty deciphering the handwriting than Harry did, and could not keep asking Harry to read aloud or it might look suspicious. Hermione, meanwhile, was resolutely plowing on with what she called the official instructions, but becoming increasingly bad-tempered as they yielded poorer results than the prince's. Harry wondered vaguely who the Half-Blood Prince had been. Although the amount of homework they had been given prevented him from reading the whole of his copy of Advanced Potion Making, he had skimmed through it sufficiently to see that there was barely a page on which the prince had not made additional notes, not all of them concerned with potion making. Here and there were directions for what looked like spells that the prince had made up himself. Or herself, said Hermione irritably, overhearing Harry pointing some of these out to Ron in the common room on Saturday evening. It might have been a girl. I think the handwriting looks more like a girl's than a boy's. The Half-Blood Prince, he was called, Harry said. How many girls have been princes? Hermione seemed to have no answer to this. She merely scowled and twitched her essay on the principles of rematerialization away from Ron, who was trying to read it upside down. Harry looked at his watch and hurriedly put the old copy of Advanced Potion Making back into his bag. It's 5 to 8, I'd better go, I'll be late for Dumbledore. Ooh, gasped Hermione, looking up at once. Good luck. We'll wait up, we want to hear what he teaches you. Hope it goes okay, said Ron, and the pair of them watched Harry leave through the portrait hole. Harry proceeded through deserted corridors, though he had to step hastily behind a statue when Professor Trelawney appeared around a corner, muttering to herself as she shuffled a pack of dirty-looking playing cards, reading them as she walked. 2 of spades, conflict, she murmured, as she passed the place where Harry crouched, hidden. 7 of spades, an ill omen. 10 of spades. Violence. Knave of spades, a dark young man, possibly troubled, one who dislikes the questioner. She stopped dead, right on the other side of Harry's statue. Well, that can't be right, she said, annoyed, and Harry heard her reshuffling vigorously as she set off again, leaving nothing but a whiff of cooking sherry behind her. Harry waited until he was quite sure she had gone, then hurried off again until he reached the spot in the 7th floor corridor where a single gargoyle stood against the wall. "Acid pops," said Harry, and the gargoyle leapt aside. The wall behind it slid apart, and a moving spiral stone staircase was revealed, onto which Harry stepped, so that he was carried in smooth circles up to the door with the brass knocker that led to Dumbledore's office. Harry knocked. "Come in," said Dumbledore's voice. "Good evening, sir," said Harry, walking into the headmaster's office. "Ah, good evening, Harry." "Sit down," said Dumbledore, smiling. "I hope you've had an enjoyable first week back at school." "Yes, thanks, sir," said Harry. "You must have been busy, a detention under your belt already." Began Harry awkwardly, but Dumbledore did not look too stern. "I have arranged with Professor Snape that you will do your detention next Saturday instead." "Right," said Harry, who had more pressing matters on his mind than Snape's detention, and now looked around surreptitiously for some indication of what Dumbledore was planning to do with him this evening. The circular office looked just as it always did. The delicate silver instruments stood on spindle-legged tables, puffing smoke and whirring. Portraits of previous headmasters and headmistresses dozed in their frames, and Dumbledore's magnificent phoenix, Fawkes, stood on his perch behind the door, watching Harry with bright interest. It did not even look as though Dumbledore had cleared a space for dueling practice. "So, Harry," said Dumbledore, in a businesslike voice, "you have been wondering, I am sure, what I have planned for you during these, for want of a better word, lessons." "Yes, sir." "Well, I have decided that it is time, now that you know what prompted Lord Voldemort to try and kill you 15 years ago, for you to be given certain information." There was a pause. "You said, at the end of last term, you were going to tell me everything," said Harry. It was hard to keep a note of accusation from his voice. "Sir," he added. "And so I did," said Dumbledore placidly. "I told you everything I know. From this point forth, we shall be leaving the firm foundation of fact and journeying together through the murky marshes of memory into thickets of wildest guesswork. From here on in, Harry, I may be as woefully wrong as Humphrey Belcher, who believed the time was ripe for a cheese cauldron." "But you think you're right?" said Harry. "Naturally I do, but as I have already proven to you, I make mistakes like the next man. In fact, being, forgive me, rather cleverer than most men, my mistakes tend to be correspondingly huger." "Sir," said Harry tentatively, "does what you're going to tell me have anything to do with the prophecy? Will it help me survive?"